Amriteshwarye Namaha. Om Amriteshwarye Namaha. Om Amriteshwarye Namaha. Om Partaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatva Manasandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Namostu te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullaravinda Yatapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharatataila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panai Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Gitamrita Duhe Namaha Sarvo Panishado Gavo Dogda Gopala Nandanaha Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gitam Mridam Mahata Vasudeva Sudam Devam Kamsachanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om Amriteshwarye Namaha. Thank you for joining us. In the last class, Lord Krishna said that Sattvic Tyaga, or the best kind of Tyaga or relinquishment, is when a compulsory duty is performed only because it should be, without attachment to the action and its fruit. We also learned the shorthand for compulsory duties. It just means yajna, which is giving back on the macro level, like giving back to nature. And the second one was dana, which is giving back on the micro level, like Hesed House here. Every Sunday morning we prepare meals for about 100 and some odd people there in this shelter. So we're giving back to, on the more micro level, we're giving meals to a particular individual. That's the micro view. And tapas is the third one, which means we give discipline to our own mind. And typically, tapas is used to mean austerity or penance and so many other things that sound a little scary, but it all boils down to spiritual discipline. So disciplining the mind is a tapas, and it's actually considered to be a compulsory duty. But if a person relinquishes such compulsory duties, even though they are prescribed in the scriptures, it can be from one of two reasons. This is what we learned last week. They are either ignorant of the benefits, could be worldly benefits or otherworldly, like after death, going to heaven, things like that, or they could be simply lazy or miserly, even though they are aware of the benefits and have the time and strength to do them. In today's world, we see both of these all over the place. Give less, take more is the slogan of modern materialism. People not only have no gratitude to those who help them, they have no gratitude to Mother Nature. And I think Amma feels that's even worse. Amma says that giving back is the law of nature, followed by every living being except us, human beings. The other group that relinquishes such duties is simply stingy or lazy, stingy with their energy or lazy with their energy and money and all that. They don't want to make the effort or spend the money, even though they are aware of all the benefits and have the wherewithal to perform such duties. They will spend a lot of energy and money on various pleasures, but not for their duties to society. These people are in the category of rajas, whereas the previous group was tamas. Now, let us continue this part of the chapter by chanting verse 10. The first half of the first line of verse 10 is almost impossible to divide up, so I'm going to pronounce it slowly, but I'll have to read the whole line. Nadveshta kushalam karma one more time. Nadveshta kushalam karma kushale nanushajjade tyagi sattva samavishto medhavi chinna samshayah. I made a few changes to this, or additions also. The relinquisher, and here I want you to know that the word used is tyagi, endowed with sattva and steadfast understanding, and with his doubts cut away. Our version has dispelled, but the words used are like cut away, and I kind of prefer that one, but dispelled is adequate, I'm sure. Shirks not even a disagreeable action. I know when we say work, in America you don't say like a work, so you typically say action. Nor is he attached to an agreeable one. So I'm going to read it without stopping in between. The relinquisher endowed with sattva, which means purity, and a steadfast understanding, and with his doubts cut away, shirks not even a disagreeable, this is actually, we have a grammar problem here. Shirks not even a disagreeable action. Okay, we'll just forget about it. Nor is he attached to an agreeable one. A little bit strange grammar, but you get the point, I think. And we're going to go into that in detail, so don't worry. So we have Shankaracharya's commentary, and today I'm not going to use so much of Shankaracharya because the other commentaries seem to like hit home more, and we don't need so much technicality here, which is his strong point. So this part of like shirks not even a disagreeable action. It means that it's an action that is not good, like some kind of selfish action or something from which only you get the benefit. And typically that would produce another birth as the cause of samsara. But let's say it is a father and he has to buy something for his children, toys or whatever it is. You know, it is considered to be a selfish action, but it's not for him. Or it's for the child, or it's for a family member, or whatever it might be. Only their family is going to benefit. But if he does it with the right attitude, then it's still selfless. So that is what a disagreeable action is. It's something that really shouldn't be done, only for yourself. But there, to a degree, these like somewhat selfish desires are recognized and they're not denounced. And he does not abhor such disagreeable work, thinking of what use of this. He's not criticizing in that way. He does not abhor such disagreeable work, thinking of what use is this. And nor is he attached to an agreeable action, meaning something that is compulsory and it's a good action. like pujas or something like that. This is an ancient text, don't forget. You know, people in those days used to judge things by whether they were pure, or, you know, taking out the garbage is probably considered to be, you know, not good because you get polluted somehow spiritually. So yes, we can understand the ancient version of it. Maybe a good one is doing a puja or something like that. And so he doesn't get attached to that, even though, you know, most people would think that it's the means to liberation, or it's purifying to the subtle body. It gives knowledge, and it leads to firm knowledge. So all these good things that you could be getting when you do that, he's ready to relinquish that to do the one that is supposed to be not very good. So that is to say, he sees no use in all those so-called good things and so-called bad things. It doesn't bother him at all. He doesn't run away from them. He doesn't get addicted to them either. So this reminds me of Amma so much because, you know, even when I arrived, which was kind of the end of the old so-called early days in the ashram, you know, Amma would come out when it was time. She would come out and join everybody in scrubbing the water tanks, which in India are usually open. There's no roof on them. You know, you want to get the rainwater as well. So, but it gets, you know, gunk gets in it and it starts to, you know, the water's not so clean anymore. So you have to get rid of all the water and then scrub everything. But to get the water out of it, you have to climb in there. And then it's about 6 feet deep. So, you know, imagine bending over, picking up a bucket of water, right? A gallon is like 5 or 8 pounds. It's not light. And then you have to hand it up to somebody above you. And it takes hours because there's 4 little tanks there put together in concrete. She would do that all day long, and people would be fighting over who gets to get in there and be with Amma. So not only is she disregarding the concepts of bad and good, you know, people are inspired to do the same just because they want to be with Amma. And on tours, you know, she could travel by air. Everybody was ready to, you know, so many people would say, I'll sponsor her ticket. But she always goes by road because she says, I want to be with my children. So there's nothing you can do. You cannot change her mind. She's always doing what is right, not what is pleasant. And Shankaracharya continues to say, who is this person? He is the tyagi. Tyagi means the one who renounces. Possessed of the merit of having abandoned attachment to action and desire for its fruits. It means through many lifetimes, we would probably say, that he has that or she has that mind to relinquish these things. And when will he not hate a disagreeable work and be unattached to an agreeable one? The sequence comes next. It is when he is endowed with sattva, purity, pervaded with sattva, which is the means to atma, anatma, viveka, which means discernment concerning the atma and what is anatma. Anatma means everything that changes. Atma is basically a symbol for what never changes, the eternal, which is our soul. But everything else in the world changes, so we would call that anatma. And discerning which one is which is actually harder than it sounds, because we keep identifying ourselves with changing things, and that's our problem. So he is someone who has that discernment, never falsely identifying with something that changes, because he or she always remembers that they are the Atma. Second point is that from that Atma, Anatma, Viveka, from that proper spiritual discernment, when he becomes endowed with steady understanding, wisdom, characterized by self-knowledge. Remember, these are the signs that they are able to do that. So they're not full sentences. It means when he attains or she attains this. And third, as a result of possessing steady understanding, with his doubts dispelled, with doubts caused by ignorance dispelled by the conviction that establishment in the true nature of the self is the supreme means to final freedom, and that there is no other means whatsoever. So, some of the grammar in these English translations from, who knows, maybe 200 years back, they're very antiquated, so it takes a lot for me to put it into the modern English. Sometimes the sentences are a little stiff. I actually asked some of the people who can read, you know, like some of these older languages, like ancient Marathi, but they say when they read the Jnaneshwar's commentary, they can't understand it because it's too old. So we're stuck either way. Although this was Sanskrit, it's similar, very archaic. Now we will find what Jnaneshwar has to say about this verse. Therefore, whatever actions, good or bad, that he has to perform as the result of his past life karma, he's putting a different angle on it, right? Whatever actions, etc., get dissolved in the way clouds get dissolved in the sky. In that way, the actions getting purified by his serene vision become incapable of entangling him in pleasure and pain. So just imagine if none of your actions could bind you or get you entangled in pleasure and pain. You know, Amma has said this joke, can you put chocolate kiss on your tongue without having your mouth watering? Challenging, right? But this person can do it because he or she is not entangled in pleasure and pain. And even if they get hurt, like we've seen things, you know, Amma might hit something or maybe had to have some kind of an injection or whatever. And she just no response to the bodily pain. She doesn't have any. I mean, she's aware of it, but it doesn't affect her. You will never see him cheerfully performing favorable actions while disliking other actions because they are unfavorable. In fact, he never feels any sort of wavering or doubt in regard to these, like one never thinks of things seen in a dream after waking up. So when we have a dream, we wake up, oh good, it was a dream, fine. But for this person who is in that state, this level of existence, of reality that we experience, for them is a dream. So they're like, okay, it doesn't matter. Anyhow, it's just a dream. It's the play of consciousness. Therefore, the tyaga, right? That means relinquishment. The tyaga without such duality as the action is done and this is the doer, that should be known as sattvic, pure. Actions relinquished in this way are genuinely relinquished. If they are relinquished in any other way, they become more injurious than their performance would have been. So, in the name of not wanting to deal with the hassle, someone may say, oh, I'm not going to do it. But in that way, they're bringing even more harm to themselves in the long run. Just over a few days, you won't see it. And then Swami Chidbhavananda, I mentioned him to you all. He died about 30, 40 years ago, but very, very good commentary that he made. He says, the sadhak, the seeker, established in sattva, purity, has a clear mind. He sees things in the true light. Therefore, he is one of steady understanding. He sees Purusha and Prakriti just as they are. What are Purusha and Prakriti? We have to go back to chapter 7, I believe. Purusha means basically pure consciousness. These are all just different names for similar concepts, but they're used in different contexts with different names. So Purusha means the pure consciousness that is there, whether this universe is in existence or not. And Prakriti is this whole universe. Anything that is made up of the 5 elements, which is everything in creation, that is called Prakriti. As we know it, it is simply earth. And everything that's not on earth is just kind of like watching a movie. But if it's on planet Earth, we can actually interact with it, and there'll be something that we like, some things that we don't like. It's not like you don't like a star and you like a different star, you hate it, it's just, we don't have any experience with it. So everything that we have experiential potential for is called Prakriti, this world. So this person, he's talking about the sadhak established in sattva, he doesn't confuse the two. He will see, this world is, made up of the three elements and the three gunas and the 5 elements, and it's just going to keep on changing, so I shouldn't get attached to it. But the life in those beings is a reflection of the Purusha, the pure consciousness. They never get those points confused. And actionless is the character of the Atman, or Purusha, which is like a clear mirror. So Atma, Purusha, Chaitanya, consciousness, they're all the same thing. And he's pointing out that that doesn't do anything, because if it did it, then what is it doing during the pralaya, the dissolution of the universe? It should be doing something. No, there's nothing to do, because nothing to do anything with it. There's no matter. So the Atman doesn't do anything, but the life forms that have that consciousness, they identify with their bodies and do the actions. And so he uses this analogy of the mirror very nicely. No change whatsoever takes place in a mirror while reflecting objects or when not reflecting objects. It is akin to the nature of Atman. It is ever itself, while during actions and without actions. The mirror acquires no merit by reflecting beautiful objects, nor demerit by reflecting ugly and dirty objects. The pure consciousness of the self is the same. The activities of Prakriti are reflected in Purusha. In other words, the consciousness in this world makes it look like consciousness is actually doing something, but that's the doing part is Prakriti, this world that we see. It's stula, it's concrete things. On that ground, Purusha is not affected in any way. One of steady understanding knows this truth, so his doubts remain dispelled throughout. The duty of all is to work hard and contribute to the cause of prosperous living. See, that's a nice point, interestingly. This is a Swami talking, and he's saying that, yes, you could contribute to the prosperous living. So he's not saying he's going to do it. He's saying that if you're a household and you're doing this, you should, try for prosperousness, prosperity, because then you can share with other people. It's not to hoard, it's to share with others. Humanity's growth and expansion of life consists in the endeavors that we make. Those who understand this basic rule have no problems and doubts. They apply themselves to whatever work they have undertaken. So in this verse, Krishna is explaining the use of karma yoga. Why does karma yoga matter? And in the first line, he defines what a karma yogi is, even though he doesn't use that word. Last week we learned that they're basically the same thing. He says they are basically one who has no preferences of their own. You might call it good, you might call it bad, doesn't matter, it's the same to me. So pleasant and unpleasant doesn't mean anything to them. They follow dharma, even when it is bitter, difficult, or unpleasant. This is like Amma's biography, right? In fact, from the beginning, they understand that such situations are bound to take place, and they are already mentally prepared for it. When I was reading this verse today, I thought to myself, like some Hollywood stars, they must marry like 6, 7, 8, 9 times. I remember hearing when I was as a kid, I don't know why I can remember it. Somebody got married 9 times. And of course, it's always due to irreconcilable differences. That means that they failed to make their own mind reconcilable with people and situations. The karma yogi, however, is reconcilable with everything in life. They don't pursue what is pleasant, or they don't run away from what is unpleasant. Karma yoga with the right understanding is the only way to overcome our likes and dislikes. And what we were talking about last time is that these likes and dislikes are what really drag us down. For those who are reconcilable with commands, like divine commands, they can just understand this concept to be God's commandment. Like the Ayurvedic medicine, you have to drink it, but it's bitter. And then you think, do I really have to drink this? And then you say, well, the doctor said so, so I must drink it. So like that, in the same way, we should think that we have to follow all these laws. The other way is, if we have a mature mind, we can try to understand things from the totality, and not just our own standpoint, what we like, what we want. The balance of society and nature depends on giving. So if I don't perform my duty, someone else is going to have to do it, and then it'll put a burden on everybody else, and if everybody does that, the entire fabric of harmony is affected. So looking at the totality like this, it also helps us to temper our frustration. Because when you get frustrated with something at home, in your job, or even your seva at the ashram, you can get frustrated, and then you think, oh, wait a second. I'm doing this not because I want it to be perfect. I'm doing this because it's my duty to give back. In chapter 3, Krishna said in verse 14, "From food, creatures come into being. From rain is produced food. From yajna," remember that's giving on the macro level, "comes forth rain, and yajna is born of action." So the animals do yajna automatically. They're just programmed, so to speak. But what about us? The key is yajna, because it is the only factor that we can actually control. If we are not the outcome of the yajna, but if you're offering something, if you're giving without any expectations, it's automatic. You've done your duty, at least that much. But if we never feel like doing that, well, that's a problem for everybody, including ourselves. And it means that this chain of life and prosperity that Krishna is talking about, I really recommend that you make a note of that, chapter 3, verse 14. If we don't do our part as yajna, then the whole chain, the whole cycle is broken. If we want to eat food, somebody has to grow the food and maintain the fields. It's not easy work. We could do it ourselves, but most people don't want to do difficult tasks. So humanity becomes lazy and unhealthy, which we see in all the statistics. But that's not true for the karma yogi, because he happily undertakes challenging tasks. Why? For inner purification, because he knows that's what he needs most. And it's to become or remain mentally strong. So like Amma says, whatever level of spiritual learning you may have, you still have to train the mind to overcome trying situations. And the best way to do this is through karma yoga. It is when you go out in the world and work in various situations that you can see how your mind reacts to different circumstances. We cannot know ourselves unless we have been forced to face certain situations. When the right circumstances arise, your vasanas will raise their hoods like cobras. As we see the vasanas rise one after the other, we can eliminate them. Selfless service strengthens the mind so that you can overcome any situation in life. So this is a very important passage, because everybody at one point will feel like, oh, this is so difficult. And that's why in the old times they used to teach the brahmacharis and brahmacharinis all these things before they got married, because it's like you're going to have to deal with all these crazy things, and it's going to be tough, and it's, you know, have babies, and it's going to be fighting, and it's going to be so difficult, but just be prepared for that. And then make your mind stronger. Don't just, take refuge in pleasure, because that saps your inner strength. So that's why she's getting these kids. You see, every morning she's cracking the whip, just to try and make them stronger. Because someday they might get married, or even if they're a brahmachari, that's not an easy life either. And what is the result of this karma yoga? He becomes a tyagi. Tyagi means a relinquisher. It's kind of a weird word in English, but it means somebody who renounces something. Amma has used the word like renunciate in this context many times. But what is a renunciate also? It gets to be a little fuzzy for Westerners. As we go through this chapter, you'll get it. That means, when he says tyagi, it means like a sattvic sannyasi, somebody who renounces only the attachment to the actions and the fruits, but you do the action. You don't, relinquish or renounce the action itself. So like we found out last time, karma yogi, bhakti yogi, and sattvic sannyasi all are the same thing. So how do we know that this person is established in sattva guna? We heard some explanations in the commentaries, but in some it means he happily embraces his worldly duties without trying to avoid them, even though he mentally relinquishes all personal benefit thereof. So you say, it's not mine, it doesn't matter, I'll do a shoddy job. It's not like that. It's because it's an offering, I'm going to do it even more, meticulously than I would do if it were for myself. It should be like that. Why does he do it? Because he understands the importance of going beyond the mind's likes and dislikes. Like Krishna said in verse 45 of chapter 2. Transcend the three gunas, that means sattva, rajas, and tamas. And that means the whole universe is the three gunas. So transcend the likes and dislikes based on these qualities, freed from duality, ever firm in sattva. So transcending those likes and dislikes and free from duality, which is that likes and dislikes, but more specifically the conditions that affect your likes and dislikes. Also, the sattvic sannyasi understands the value of his duties, which at the very least amounts to showing an example for other householders. You may not feel like you need to do something, you don't care about your grass, but there's, say there's ticks or something like that. You don't care about ticks, but you mow your lawn anyhow so other people don't get them, or they do it also because we're a role model. So rajasic people have more likes and dislikes, while tamasic people are lazy, obviously. So they always try to get by in life with the least effort. Transcending these gunas means we should not feel that we are missing something in life. Because we think, I have to get this, the new phone, the new car, the new this, the new that, better food, better house, better job, better wife, better kids, better boss. All these things is we're trying to change what Amma calls as the circumstances instead of our inner stances. She says we've got it all backwards. So we should not feel like we're missing anything, or we must do something to make our life better. Doing is never a solution to our problems, but most of us feel it is that way. And if there is anything that is really missing in life, it is the understanding that our life will become better only through inner growth, not external growth. So then what? Such a karma yogi soon becomes one of steadfast understanding. We're still talking about the first verse for all this time, but it's a very deep one, so we can't just skip over it. So steadfast understanding here means knowledge of his oneness with Brahman. So it's not like a small understanding, it is the supreme understanding. We know that from the commentaries. And so remember, karma yoga doesn't automatically end up in self-realization. It's not like you jump on the karma yoga train and then someday you're going to be realized. It purifies the mind so it can be capable of appreciating and understanding deeper teachings like Vedanta. Until then, our mind may find Vedanta dry, boring, and, if nothing else, a cure for insomnia. That means it helps you fall asleep. I know people listen to Vedanta lectures to go to bed. It's really helps, they say. That means that they need a little more inner purification. It's not like a criticism, it's just the reality. And as part of the process of studying Vedanta, questions will inevitably present themselves. So it is vital that we clarify our understandings as we go along. That's mananam. It's not like, I didn't get that, who cares? We have to ask questions. And some of them can be answered by someone whom you feel is farther along on the path, while others can only be answered by the Guru, Amma. Like this morning we heard a talk, if you were there watching, it was a brahmacharini, yellow, talking about how Amma answers important questions. And she said that somebody asked Amma, how can I become Amma? And Amma says, you're already Amma. Or you already are Amma. And it's like, who else can say that? Who else can say that statement and be convincing? If I say that, people will be like, really? I'm not so sure. So either way, cutting away all doubts, which is what the verse says, is an inescapable step. All the doubts regarding myself, the world, and God have to be eliminated until we are convinced that we are indeed infinite and we're convinced that the world is unreal. So Chidbhavananda Swami has an introduction to the next verse saying, he's playing the devil's advocate. Why not simplify things by renouncing all work instead of doing it in a detached way? What do you think? Let's find out in the next verse. Nahi deha brita shakyam tyaktum karmanyasheshataha yastu karma phalatyagi. Then this part is a little bit difficult. We're going to have to chant it, as one thing, not just breaking it up. Satyagithyabhidhiyate. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't chant the whole verse of verse 10. Let's do that first so we don't forget. So we'll chant together verses 10 and 11. That was my mistake. Slowly. Na dveshta kushalam karma kushale nanushajjate tyagi sattva samavishto medhavi chinna samshayaha. Verse 11. Nahi deha brita shakyam tyaktam karmanyasheshataha yastu karma phalatyagi Satyagithabhidhiyate. Little slightly change this. The first word, since, is often translated as indeed, though it can be interpreted both ways, it seems. But we'll stick with the ashram version. Since actions cannot be entirely relinquished by an embodied being, one who relinquishes the fruits of actions is called a tyagi. So what I changed is the gender specificity, and a man of renunciation just seems a little odd. So I'm putting in the Sanskrit word tyagi, which we talked about already, and we'll get I think everybody's capable of understanding the meaning of that word, especially by the time we finish this chapter. So let's call it tyagi. And the commentaries, Shankaracharya, talking about that part, actions cannot be entirely relinquished, etc. He says, he who identifies himself with the body is so called, and not the one of discernment. So you remember in the previous verse we were talking about steady knowledge or understanding as being the supreme understanding. That's what he's saying here. He's talking about discernment. This is the commentary, right? And he's saying that this is actually a person who is God realized, and you're not going to say that he cannot be entirely relinquished. In other words, actions cannot, a realized being cannot stop actions entirely. That's a wrong statement, and he points that out. So he say, we're not talking about such people, realized people. We're talking about people who are identifying with the body. Therefore, the unenlightened one, whose duty is the performance of action, and who, while performing the obligatory works, relinquishes just the thought of fruits of action, is called a tyagi, even though he performs actions. From this, it is concluded that a seer of the supreme reality, who is free from the thought that the body is the self, can renounce all action completely. That means internally, right? Because Amma is in that category, and she is doing all these things, but we can say that she's not doing anything because she's totally detached. Okay, Jnaneshwar has some really good commentaries coming up, starting here. Anyone feeling an aversion for actions, having a body, must be taken as thoughtless. What would happen to a clay pot that feels aversion for clay? Where would a piece of cloth be if it hated thread? Would a burning lamp ever hate light? In all these ways, so long as there exists the semblance of the body form, what point is there in entertaining foolish ideas of relinquishing all actions? A person can put a mark on his forehead, then remove it again and again. But can he remove his forehead and replace it? In that way, a person may relinquish duties, but how can they relinquish involuntary body functions? Actions like breathing go on functioning even during sleep. Thus, activity closely follows one who identifies with their body. So, if you identify with the body, then there's no way to escape from actions. Thus, neither the living nor the dead can escape it. Why the dead can't escape it? Wait a second. They don't have a physical body, but they still have a mind, and they're thinking all kinds of things. Mental activity does not stop unless you are in deep sleep. So even people who leave their body in another dimension, another subtle dimension, we can say, they still have mental activity. So they cannot escape either. There is only one technique by which people can escape from the clutches of activity in this world. One must not fall victim to greed for the results of their actions. Then why am I doing it, right? Then we go back to the last verse and we remember. When the fruit is dedicated to God, there dawns the realization of knowledge through His grace. This kind of tyaga is the proper tyaga. Means renouncing. Therefore, only such a person who relinquishes actions in this way is a true tyagi. All other ways are like putting up with punches to avoid blows with a club. Which one would you choose? The punch or the club? Yeah, well, the punch is better than the club, but it's not good either. Chidbhavananda Swami's commentary. This is a nice analogy too. He lived a long time ago, so airplanes were really fascinating at that time. But he's using it, something that we forget about because it's so commonplace now. There are many points of similarity between the bodily existence and a flight in an aeroplane. One is called the Jivatma, so that means, I mentioned it I think last week also, the consciousness of each and every one of us feels like it's bottled in this body, so to speak, but we know theoretically that there's only one self and it's all one, right? But so long as we don't realize that and we feel like we're limited to this body, we are called a Jivatma. And what we want to do is merge into the Paramatma. That's the goal. Amma is the Paramatman in a body because she doesn't have the problems we have. But in this analogy, it's about the Jivatma. So one is called the Jivatma as long as one is embodied, a pilgrim towards God. The other is called a passenger as long as he is flying. The Jivatma renounces bodily existence only on realizing God. The passenger disembarks the plane only on reaching the destination. So, next I'm going to get on a plane tomorrow. Actually, I should remember that one. I'm thinking, okay, what Krishna says and Jnaneshwar says. Conditions while in the body are also similar to those in the plane, which flies over plains, hills, mountains, and violent seas. Bodily existence has its pleasant and unpleasant aspects and its ups and downs. The plane does not stop while in flight, lest it should crash. Bodily activities also cannot be suspended by the embodied. So they don't say like, oh, we're having some turbulence, we're going to turn off the engines and go down. And you have to keep going even when there's turbulence. So the same goes for us. Karma takes place as long as the body lasts. Breathing, eating, sleeping, such bodily activities go on ceaselessly. We forget about them all because they're involuntary. Obligatory duties also must be executed relentlessly. The prudent person has an efficient way of getting their work done. While in the plane, if the passenger worries about the dangers and risks of the flight, he defeats himself and his purpose. He doesn't improve matters at all by worrying. Amma says that all the time, especially during the meditation. Instead, he loses his stamina. But if he resigns those eventualities to the crew and to Providence, God, and if he engages himself in higher pursuits, he stands to gain. Conducting himself in this way amounts to renouncing the fruit of the flight, but not the flight itself. You get in the flight and you're like, okay, I surrender to you, Amma. I'm not going to try to fly this plane and I'm not going to worry about it either. So that action, the doership, is gone. A person should engage himself in the earthly duties that fall to his lot without being concerned with their outcome. While doing his duties, if he keeps his mind fixed on God, his gain is immense and he is a true sannyasi. Amma has said something very similar also. Once Amma asked Amma, which is better, Bhakti Yoga or Karma Yoga? Which one do you think is better? Bhakti, Karma, Bhakti, Karma. Wait a second, didn't we just say the same thing? Yes. Amma says, Son, we can't say that they are different from each other. For a true karma yogi is a real devotee, and a true devotee is a real karma yogi. Yet every action does not necessarily become karma yoga. Only actions performed selflessly as an offering to God become karma yoga. She's just, and she says, I've never read the Bhagavad Gita, right? It's like, come on, you wrote it, you spoke it, because you're saying the same thing, thousands of years later. Similarly, circumambulations, raising ours, and offering salutations to the deity don't automatically qualify as bhakti. Our mind should dwell on God. We should be able to do every act as His worship. We should see our beloved deity in everyone and offer our love and service to them. That's a tough one, I think, sometimes when you get too close to somebody. It's like, no way. We hear people say that. Only then we can say that we have bhakti. Wow. So if you get angry at a family member, it's like you don't qualify as a bhaktan, a devotee. A true karma yogi keeps his mind in God while engaging in every action. If we act with the attitude that everything is the Lord, then we have bhakti. On the other hand, if one thinks of external things, even while doing puja, that puja cannot be called bhakti yoga. It is just external action and not really a worship of God. Yet even if one's job is cleaning lavatories, if one chants the mantra while doing that with the attitude that it's the Lord's work, it is bhakti yoga, karma yoga, and meditation. All right, who wants to sign up for the cleaning the toilets? Okay. Amma said. In the previous verses, Krishna said that household duties should not be renounced. Here, Krishna adds by saying they cannot be renounced. The reasons came in the commentaries, as you heard. The conclusion being that it is not possible for an embodied being, means anybody who has a body and identifies with it, it is impossible for them to renounce karma entirely. Karma, now I said it before, but I want to say it again. That word karma can be deceiving. It has at least three meanings. One is like, oh, I have good karma, bad karma. What is my karma in my chart? That's one thing. And then karma is also activity, actions. So in India, often, especially in this kind of context, scriptural context, they use that word karma to mean just actions. And then the third would be like traditional rites, the karmas. So you have to be careful which version of that karma it is. Here we're just talking about basic activities and actions. Arjuna may leave the battlefield, we may quit our seva and walk away, or we may leave our job or whatever it is, but that doesn't solve anything really. We're going to continue to do so many things. It's not like we're going to stop doing everything. And since we didn't transcend the issue we faced, we will continue to suffer until we realize the problem is here, not in the circumstances. Some people quit their jobs out of frustration, but they still need income to make ends meet. So after a while, they have to get another job or start their own business. And it is not that they eluded action. Hopefully, they use that time to do more self-reflection, learn new things, and these are still all actions. So whatever path we take, there will always be a mixture of pleasant and unpleasant duties. And that goes for Swamis too, believe me. The only difference is that Amma has hammered into our head the idea that we should avoid likes and dislikes and never yearn for the fruits of your labor. So maybe a very minuscule difference, but something, if anything's there, it's only because of Amma. And everybody has these problems. Shankaracharya gives an introduction to the next verse. What then is the benefit arising from the relinquishment of all action? Let's hear in verse 12. Anishtam ishtam mishrancha trividham karmana phalam. This is a little difficult. We're going to have to the first half of the second line. Bhavatyaginam pretya. One more time. Bhavatyaginam pretya. Natu sanyasinam kvachit. I think this is the most difficult one today. Let's chant together slowly. Anishtam ishtam misrancha trividham karmana phalam bhavatyaginam pretya natu sanyasinam kvachit. I didn't change anything. I just added the Sanskrit words for relinquishers because it comes twice. The threefold fruit of action, which is agreeable, disagreeable, and mixed, accrues to non-relinquishers after death, but never to relinquishers. So non-relinquishers, just imagine using that word in a conversation with somebody, they're like, who are you, right? But in Sanskrit, it's very simple. It's called atyagi. So we have atma, anatma, we have satya, asatya, and this is tyaga and atyaga, or tyagi and atyagi, the one who never, gives back, basically. And but interestingly, when Krishna says never to relinquishers, which should be the opposite, he uses sannyasi. So just one more confirmation that, there's no difference to Lord Krishna. He uses the same meaning, but in two different words. Now, so the relinquishers is atyagi, and the second one time is sannyasi. That's what I added. It's not so important. Now Shankaracharya's commentary. He gives a little extra explanation of what this disagreeable, agreeable, etc. mean. The three sorts of fruit from action of the nature of dharma and adharma. That means what is righteous and what is unrighteous, what is good and what is bad. Those three sorts are disagreeable, and he gives an example, such as hell, such as an animal birth. Okay, that doesn't sound fun. Number two, agreeable, such as the birth as a deva, like Indra or somebody like that. And mixed means a blend agreeable and a blend of agreeable and disagreeable, such as a human birth. Oh, so we're mixed. Yeah, mixed nuts probably goes better, right? Okay. Shankaracharya points out that such fruit only applies to unenlightened people. I didn't cite it here, but that's what he says. Same thing as the previous verses. We understand that we're not talking about an enlightened person, we're talking about a unliberated person. It's not for real tyagis. And he specifically says this is not regarding the sannyasins of the highest type. Now, I want you to understand what is the traditional vision of what highest type of sannyasi is. I'll share a little description from the Narada Parivrajaka Upanishad. It is one of the, I think, 10 or 12 sannyasa Upanishads, which I had the time to read before this ceremony we had 2 years ago, and I learned a lot. So I want to share this with you because I never understood the details. The sannyasi I'm talking about is called a Paramahamsa Parivrajaka. They subsist on 5 handfuls of food from 5 houses, once a day at night. And they use their hand as an alms bowl. Normally you have you can take like a 5-gallon bucket, it's like, give me some food. No, 1 handful, that's all you get from each house. They only bathe mentally, smearing vibhuti all over their body instead. They can have only 2 loincloths and a patched garment for the winter. I guess there weren't so many of them in Chicago. And they were allowed to have a staff, but they have to always be on the move alone. The only exception is in bad weather. So I think in Chicago they would be in one place for like 8 months. To conclude with Shankaracharya's commentary, I will quote, "It follows that complete renunciation of all action is possible only for the seer of the supreme truth." I mean, if you're living a life like the one I just described, you must be enlightened. Complete renunciation of all action is not possible for the unenlightened person who sees the body, doer, and accessories, all the things he uses, as himself. Jnaneshwar has a nice analogy that I don't think people would come up with these days because it comes from a traditional society, an ancient one. A father gives his daughter in marriage to another. Done. Saying, she's no more mine. And thus, he becomes absolved from all responsibilities in regard to her. She's yours. Then only the son-in-law who accepts her gets entangled. In that way, one doer may perform actions, thinking proudly he is the doer, like the son-in-law. Another may do action with the perfect detachment, without any egotism, not entertaining any desire for the fruit of actions, yet none of the two can altogether refrain from performing actions. So the father, and with respect to his daughter, he doesn't have to do anything. No actions. But he had how many other things in his life? He still has obligations. He has to do so many things every day. So he's not getting free from action at all. The threefold world is already a fruit of action. Gods, human beings, and all other beings constitute what is called this universe. While all these are just the 3 kinds of fruit from actions: undesired, desired, and mixed. When the power of discernment becomes corrupted under the sway of sensuousness, beings do wrong actions and are reborn in a very low form, such as, what do you think? Vermin, insects, and the like. Wow. Now I understand why you call it undeserved fruit. If beings respect their own religion, probably we could say everybody's religion, In other words, don't criticize, don't hurt anybody. Be aware of their own qualities and perform good actions. They are reborn in the form of Indra and other demigods, etc. I don't know if anybody wants to become Indra, but after a few 100 million years, I'm sure there'll be an opening. And this is called the desired fruit. So we're talking about an average person. People who are listening to the Bhagavad Gita probably are not interested in these things, but for most people it's desired. By mixing together sweet and sour juices, an altogether different and more tasty juice is created. In such a way, truth and untruth mixed together create a queer thing, altogether different from the first 2. Consequently, the mixing together in roughly equal proportions of good and bad creates a fruit that leads to rebirth in a human body. So we are the queer cocktail, a queer mixture of truth and untruth. and goodness and badness. So anyhow, puts us in our place. Such is the threefold fruit spread out all over the universe. So it's not just here, it's all over. Maybe there are some life forms that we don't know of. Beings who pursue it in expectation have no escape from experiencing it. Amma has said previously, when you turn over a rock and there's a worm there, he's looking at you and he's saying, you can't take my beautiful wife and children. No, she's mine. These are my children. And we're like, you're the last thing that I'm looking for. I mean, I'm not interested in you at all. But he has pride in his family and attachment. So he pursued it somehow at one point, and now he's stuck with it. The body feels a thrill of greatness while actions are being performed. But with the approach of death, all the fruits of our actions come swarming. Little sound effect. When a powerful creditor arrives at the door of a debtor to demand repayment of his debts at the stipulated time, he cannot be avoided. In that way, the being cannot escape and has to experience the fruit of its actions. A grain, which is seed, a grain drops down onto the soil from the ear of the corn. It germinates and grows into another ear of corn, from which the grain or seed again drops down and grows into another ear of corn, and this cyclic process goes on forever. In that way, while experiencing the fruit of past actions, a being, of course us included, creates various other fruits of actions in the way one goes on taking one step after another. So this is a very important point because Amma has said something very similar many times. So it's like, not only are you growing corn, you're creating much more corn because so many seeds fall from the tree, from the plant, and then you have more and more corn. Imagine if that corn was painful. So, in other words, karmic pain. Then we don't want those seeds to go anywhere. We don't want to have more, seeds than we already have. So Amma says, just be sure that you don't create more vasanas. Because if you have vasanas, well, it's already over. You already created those. You can't be criticized for your vasanas. Amma can do it, but the rest of us can't. And she says that you just don't want to create more vasanas as you try to reduce your karmas. So if you increase your karma, if you increase your vasanas on the path, it's going to be very, very slow, and you might even go backwards. So she's very careful to point that out to everybody. All actions end only when the fruit is relinquished with the help of inner purification and a shower of the nectar-like Guru's grace. Those who secure such renunciation, mainly brought about through knowledge, become free from the sufferings of the action-born fruit. There remains no room for darkness with the rising of the sun. How can a shadow exist when the original thing is absent? Therefore, actions are rendered helpless before one who has taken to renunciation. That word, don't forget, it means you can be married, you can have kids, all that stuff, but you're renouncing the fruit and the doership, all that. So, there's nowhere. Amma says it's like sending a letter without a return address on it. When you do it selflessly, it never comes back to you. But if you say, I'm John Jones, I did this, that means that that's going to come back to you. The action is going to come back to you. The karma is going to come back to you. Chidbhavananda Swami's commentary. There are marks to indicate that a person has reached perfection and no more needs to be born again. So interesting. That's important for us. What does that person look like? Such a person is ever contented in the self. The body is hanging on him like a shadow. The activities of that body take place meticulously, in spite of his having withdrawn the mind from it. I think we should have put it in the feminine case because it is exactly a description of Amma. She's active in the world, but she is not of the world, which is the next line of that commentary. While active in the line in the world, they are not of the world. It's exactly what Amma is. There are people who wallow in hell even here on earth. There are the others who behave like brutes. Still others exhibit only human traits. Yet others walk the earth as celestials, and they make a heaven of this world. All these varying characteristics go along with them when they relinquish the existing bodies and receive new bodies. Their rebirths are according to their character. That doesn't go for Amma because she came from her own volition as an incarnation. So here Krishna points out the advantage of becoming a sattvika sannyasi compared with other things. These differences also came up in chapter 2, verse 40, where he said, "In this yoga, no effort is lost and no obstacle exists. Even a little bit of this dharma," meaning karma yoga, "delivers one from great fear." So some people say they did a lot of karma yoga and it was all a waste. They don't understand really. It's sad. They need some counseling actually. So, I mean spiritual, not otherwise. There's Krishna says, and Amma also says, she hasn't put it in a scripture like this, there's no loss in karma yoga. The only obstacles are mind. So only the sattvic sannyasi, the pure or the ideal sannyasi who doesn't reject the actions, only the fruit and the doership. That person is free of the karmic results that would normally add to an individual's total karma. All others are simply delaying liberation by identifying with all their actions and incurring more and more karma. So that's what Amma was talking about. You want your liberation to be sooner than later. So if you want that, you don't identify, you have to follow all these selfless measures. And mixed means it is good from one angle and not so good, bad from another angle. I think it feels like kind of modern politics. There's no such thing as a 100% desirable party or a 100% undesirable party. But sadly, in this case, the results are due to our own actions in previous births. So unlike politics, we have nobody else to blame. It's kind of handy to have politicians. People can, oh, that guy's him, she's bad, this guy's bad, she's, like that. But here we can't do that. It's like, me in my past life, he was a real bad guy. But we can't run away from that because the karma is chasing us. Just think how many selfish births we must have lived, right? And we can forgive a 2-year-old child clinging to his toy and saying, mine. I remember a 2-year-old boy just doing that for a long time. But what if an adult does the same thing with his role, his possession, his wealth, his praise? The same 2-year-old in a 75-year-old body does not bode well for the next birth. But it's very common. Mine. Somewhere along the way, we must learn how to let go of that illusion of mine. Because, as Amma says, we come with nothing and we leave with nothing. Those who don't even try are the ones Krishna is talking about here. When he says, after death, the threefold fruit of action accrues to non-relinquishers. So long as we detach from our actions and relinquish the doership and our fruits, we don't have to worry about this. We don't increase our karma. These three results do not come to this kind of a sannyasi, karma yogis, bhakti yogis. And why not? Because Krishna has said of karma yogi, he is balanced in success and failure, because balance of mind is called yoga. And if we haven't attained that space of being balanced in success and failure, that should be our first goal, because that's what enables us to detach from all of our actions and their fruits. The last verse for today, verse 13. Panchaitani Mahabaho Karanani Nibodhame Sankhye Kritante Proktani Siddhaye Sarva Karmanam. Now together. Panchaitani Mahabaho Karanani Nabodhame Sankhye Kritante Proktani Siddhaye Sarva Karmanam. No change here except for adding a comma. Learn from me, O mighty armed, these 5 causes for the accomplishment of all actions as declared by the wise, comma, which is the end and means of all actions. Okay, so I'm not going to use any Shankaracharya commentary, just going straight into Jnaneshwar, because there's really nothing so substantial in this verse. He's just saying, I'm going to teach you something. But the commentary is helpful, so I'll share that. Since these 5 alone are the root causes of this world of actions, the attributeless Atma should not in any way be connected with them. Okay, clear demarcation. Possessing in your hands as you do the supreme gem of knowledge in the form of myself. This is Krishna talking. Why should you be burdened with hearing about them through other sources? With a mirror placed in front of you, why give importance to what others see and implore them to tell you how you look? So in other words, Krishna is saying, look, I'm here. You don't have to ask anybody else. I will tell you what you need to know. So what follows after that, to me, sounds like it sounds a lot like the old days in the ashram. Even before I reached there, we read in the early volumes of Awakened Children how Amma would suddenly go into samadhi, and some of the devotees would be really touched powerfully, and cry and all these things. So we're going to get a version of that between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. And though it is not so philosophical, it shows the beauty of the guru-disciple relationship, especially when you are so close with the guru, like the original Swamis and Swaminis were in 1980, 1982, something like that. So, Lord Krishna forgot himself while talking in this way, in the rush of affection, while Arjuna, on the other hand, became dissolved in bliss. Arjuna became the very idol of happiness, the barriers, walls between happiness and self-realization getting smashed. So it's so close to realization, it seems. The Lord, being all-powerful and all-knowing, regained his normal self and ran forward enthusiastically to drag Arjuna out as he was getting drowned in the ocean of delight. Oh, that's so mean, right? Arjuna is going to say that. The rushing torrent of joy was so strong and powerful that Arjuna was engulfed in it, having lost self-consciousness. Yet Lord Krishna restrained the torrent and said, "O Partha, do not lose sight of your own self." At this, Arjuna heaved a sigh and said, "You are a generous donor, and you already know that I got tired of living with you on the plane of duality as a separate individual. I was trying to attain unison with you. Should you feel pleased to look on such a state of mind, why then remind me over and over again my state as an individual being?" He's like, why aren't you allowing me to merge in you? Hearing this, Lord Krishna said, "You silly one, you have not come to know this properly yet. Are the moon and her splendor distinct from each other? Such is the unique nature of love that I have towards you. So long as our mutual affection is intact, the distinction as individual and individual between us is bound to remain. And therefore, let this discussion stop here. We were just talking of the actions being distinct from the soul." Arjuna said, "You have read my mind correctly. You promised to explain how there were 5 causes in the root of all actions. And you were going to explain to me about how the Atma, being in no way concerned with actions." At this, the Lord of Universe said with great pleasure, "Where else could there be found one who would firmly implore and persist in asking questions on this topic?" It reminds me of Amma dealing with the children. They're maybe 4 years old, or they're asking for the milk of knowledge, Gosh, she would just be like, "I want to eat you alive, you're so cute," right? So, therefore, O Arjuna, I shall now tell you as I said I would, but that will mean putting an additional burden of affection on you. So it's like you're going to love me even more when I do that. Arjuna said, "Oh Lord, have you forgotten what you said before? It is for this affection that you are maintaining the distinction between us." So I think Krishna liked this and he says, "Oh, is it so? Well, I now begin. Hear with full attention. The 5 causes combine together and give formation to the actions. Distinct from these is the Atma, which abides neutral. The Atma is neither the instrumental cause nor the material cause. That means it's not the instrument used to do something, and it's not the material that is used to do something, like the clay of a pot. It's also not the potter's wheel. Nor does it ever exert itself in bringing about the formation of actions. Actions, both good and bad, take place in the soul, in the way night and day take place in the sky. Water, heat, and vapor combined with air create clouds in the sky, yet the sky knows nothing about it. What a beautiful analogy. A small boat is built of wooden planks and rowed by the boatman or moved by the breeze, water remaining only a neutral onlooker. An earthen pot is shaped out of a lump of clay on the potter's wheel. The earth upon which all this takes place takes no part other than giving support. It's not like the earth is actually doing something. All the diverse world affairs are carried out in the light of the sun. Does the sun ever take any part in all this? In that way, the viney plants of actions get firmly fixed in the soil only due to these 5 causes when they are in union, the Atma remaining entirely aloof. We're going to hear about those causes later. Chidbhavananda Swami's commentary. According to Vedanta, the non-dual philosophy, the undertaking of all action is to transcend it. The whole purpose of action is to transcend action. Prakriti, remember that is this world, it's nature, it's the whole universe. Anything that we can see or touch with our hands and all kind of instrumentary. So Prakriti, which is composed of activity, is the training ground of the Jivatma. So in other words, this soul that inhabits this body is in the training ground of this world. As children go to school to learn, the Jivatma comes into the world to learn its lessons. Children apply themselves diligently to their studies. They should not waste time. The required learning must be completed within the prescribed time. Then they have to graduate successfully, not getting stuck in the school permanently. The pupils keep all these points in mind. And all these points apply to the Jivatma as well. It should learn its lessons from this world, Prakriti. It has to understand the nature of action even while it is involved in it, with going beyond it as the goal. So this is a very important message to all of us. They have this tendency to like relinquish things or just walk away from things, thinking that, oh, this is no good. I'm not getting anywhere with this. But there's no escape from transcending actions themselves, other than continuing to do our actions. Now, if you feel you are doing something wrong, of course you can stop that. But if it feels like it should be your duty in life, then it's not recommended in this context to drop that because you're frustrated. So please note that the sannyasa topic, along with Arjuna's original question, that was over with the last verse. And just to make it clear, the central point is that sannyasa and tyaga are one and the same, because that was his question. And they do not involve renouncing any duty, only renouncing attachment of all kinds. So this is what we call sattvika sannyasa. Now that we're moving into a new topic, we're just summarizing the previous one. Whether it's sattvika sannyasa, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, they're all the same thing with different names. So up to the previous verse, the content has been basically a summary of chapter 3, Karma Yoga. Now from this verse 13 and 5 more, we will find a summary of Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, which is going to be a summary of chapters 4 through 6. He's going to come back to the path of knowledge, Jnana Yoga, like we mentioned when we started this chapter. But that'll take some time. So now just think of it as the path of knowledge, Jnana Yoga, but not completely. He says every action involves 5 factors. They're all essential for the accomplishment of all actions. And as always, Krishna gives credit to the tradition. He gives the credit to the Sankhya philosophy, which is basically another name for Vedanta. So in this way, not only does he inform Arjuna that it's not Krishna's new, crackpot idea or something like that. No, this is the tradition, and it's been there for a long time. I'm just reminding you, maybe you didn't understand it when you learned it before, because all the princes did learn these things. They might not have been listening so much because they want to go out and practice archery and sword fighting and things like that. So he now, as a much older person, he needs to hear it again, all these teachings. So Krishna is saying, yes, this is the same Sankhya, the same Vedanta, but you're more mature now, so I can tell to you in more detail. Jnaneshwar says here, now I shall describe the 5 causes, each one separately, in the way pearls should be picked up and weighed one by one. And we're going to hear those pearls of wisdom next time. When I say next time, I want you to know that it's probably going to be not next week, but the week following. However, in compensation of that, we're going to make the birthday celebration here available through live stream. It's going to be on this next Saturday rather, 15th, and you can find the link on our website. If not now, it'll be there soon. So And we only had one question today and more content, so we'll do the question and whichever ones come after that next time. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Those of you who have time, please remain and join us for a short meditation. Om Amriteshwari Namaha. Please close your eyes. Check your posture. And slow down your breathing. With each long, deep breath, feel the body and mind relaxing further and further. Feel Amma's presence all around you. Feel yourself in her arms, receiving darshan. Feel the warmth of her embrace. Now focus your awareness on your breathing process. Be a witness to the breath, witnessing the peaceful and harmonious flow of the breath as it goes in and out. Now, with this relatively peaceful mindset, let us try to visualize how we can apply these teachings. First, to visualize Amma, how she does all her actions so selflessly. It is like nobody is there, but everything is done in her presence. No ego, no desire for the fruits. The perfect example of karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and sannyasa. With Amma as our role model, let us visualize some of the events of the day. If we were to apply this teaching of Krishna's as demonstrated by Amma, how would our day have looked today? Was there something we really didn't want to do but had to, or wanted to do but could not do? Something difficult, unfavorable, disliked, or the opposite? How would it look if Amma was doing the same tasks and actions? Now let us visualize tomorrow, not to worry, not to plan something wonderful for ourselves, but what you know you have to do tomorrow, if there's something. Try to visualize that being an example of these teachings. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do. At least it is for you. You will try to avoid being the doer. And we must relinquish the fruit from that. At least the expectation of it. How can we do these actions or duties without feeling that we are doing it, without getting attached to the action itself. Now let us pray to Amma that we are able to put these teachings into practice in our lives and try to emulate her example. We will conclude with the final prayer. Take a deep breath. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnaan Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. One more long deep breath. And as you exhale, you can open your eyes if you wish. Once again, thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you all next Saturday. Namaskar.